Hi and welcome to RC Modders, and this is the third video in the Bruder Jeep Wrangler JK conversion to full RC series. In this video we're going to be simply removing the body and the suspension and separating the wheels from the axles. This is often the trickiest part of a conversion, but easy to do when you know how. This instalment follows on from the last one where we looked at the components which I used to do the conversion, and the link for that is shown in the top right hand corner. In the video which follows this one, I'm going to be installing the motors and sorting out the mounting of the wheels. When that is done, there will also be a link here taking you to that video. As ever, please feel free to post your thoughts and questions and I'll do my best to answer them. No specialist tools are required for this or any part of this build. Let's get started. Okay, just before we tear into this one, I think it's worth a quick review of the model which I already did to see what we're trying to achieve. So in the finished model, the body simply comes off once you've taken the screw out of the back by lifting and just separating the front like this, because it gets held on by these bonnet clips. There is no need to remove the front grille unless you're wanting to install the lights, which I haven't done in this conversion, but I think it will be reasonably straightforward to do. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to remove 6 body clips. There are 2 here, 2 here, and 2 at the back there. And they correspond to 6 holes on the body itself, here, here, and at the back there. As with just about every Bruder conversion I've ever done, removing the body from the chassis is a case of pushing the black clips back from underneath, and then usually it will either just lift off or you have to push one of the coloured tabs back. The first thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to remove the 2 axles, particularly because we're going to be wanting to get to these clips here, which are actually buried underneath the front tyres. Removing the rear axle is actually easy in the front, so I'll just do this one first. It's actually a case of simply getting a screwdriver in there and rocking it up like that, and then with a bit of luck, out it comes. Making sure that you don't lose the springs, and then the front, get a screwdriver in there to release it, pull it up, and then in the back, might take a couple of attempts. That's released, and then because it's still attached by the steering arm here, you need to rock it. Out it comes, and again make sure that you don't lose the springs. In order to get the body off, we need to release the black part of the chassis which retains the coloured tabs, and that is simply a case of getting a screwdriver in there, pulling them back. So there's one here, one there. These 2 are just a case of pushing the screwdriver in and pushing those black tabs back. It's there. And on the front, similarly, the screwdriver goes in and you push the black tabs back. And then, with a bit of luck, let's see. Yep, that's off. Not forgetting that it is held on by these 2 bonnet clips. You may need to rock those back slightly. And we've successfully removed the body from the chassis without doing any damage. Next, we're going to be separating the wheels from these axles. So referring back to the original conversion which I did, you'll see that this piece of plastic here is much shorter than how it starts off, and that's going to allow us to saw all the way through here, including the axle, so that we can actually separate the axle and wheels from this plastic piece. I'm going to be using the Dremel vise because it's quite soft and it's quite a handy way to hold it, and I think it will make it easier for me to film, so I'll just do that up. Incidentally, I'm going to put a link into this because I'm so pleased with it into the description in case you're interested in looking at it. That's quite firmly held. In order to keep the temperature down, because I really don't want to distort any plastic, I'm just going to be using this simple hacksaw blade. And that has come off quite easily. This part I will be trimming properly in the next video. I think in hindsight I would probably advise cutting as close as you can to this part here. I think that I only just got away with that. Removal of the wheels from the axles is pretty straightforward, and this is something which I've done on many models. So taking an M8 nut, putting that over the top, and that will just kind of hold in place. Putting the axle in a vise, and in this case I'm just using a small portable one, and the distance that you want is probably about 1/4 inch. Clamp that up tight, and then simply take a claw hammer, put it into the gap, try to get it to be roughly halfway across the nut, and just pull. So that's the two rear wheels done. So onto the front. Now the first thing we want to do is we want to take this arm off here, and it's kind of slightly held on in the plastic, and it's very, very easy to snap it. Incidentally, if you do snap it, it isn't too difficult to glue this back on and just put a 1.8mm hole through and put an M2 screw in. Right, so for getting this off, rather than just pull, it's actually safer to do it using a pair of small long nose pliers, and you just need to push it hard enough to sort of nip it past the place where it's holding on. There's one side, there's the other side, and then this should come off much more easily. You just do it a little bit each side until it does. Might take a little bit of force, but you're much safer doing it that way than tugging and pushing and pulling. Right, so we're going to want to get these wheels off these hub carriers, and these hub carriers are not going to be needed for the build because they get replaced by the 3D printed motor holders. So getting this off is literally a matter of easing these out, and they don't come out that easily. When we come to put the motor holders in, we will have ground out some of the plastic here, and that's going to make these much easier to move apart. So let's just try and get that out. There's one. Not a massive amount of force, but there is virtually no danger of breaking anything apart from your fingernails. There's the other one. It seems to come out easier if you move this all the way to one side. And that's the other one. This we'll put aside for later along with the rear one. Now, in order to get these out, there are a number of ways of doing it, and I would suggest that probably the easiest and quickest is just to take the saw and cut it across. So we'll put this in the vise and we'll do that. So that now comes out easily. Bolt goes on. Obviously you try and leave as much of this metal as you can because it just makes it easier for it to go into the vise. Might as well put one in at the other end, the offcut, just to keep them apart. So that's all 4 done. One last job to do on the disassembly, and that's to take out the fake engine, and that's actually quite easy. There's just a couple of tabs, one here, one there, and you can pretty well just push them through. One side. And that comes out. This area here is going to be perfect for our battery to sit in, and there'll be a little bit of cutting to do, but we won't do that until we get to that part of the build. And so we've managed to separate the body from the chassis, get the wheels off from the axles and the hub carriers, remove the fake engine, and I think that we're pretty well ready for the next stage, where we're going to be installing the motors and getting the transmission going. So I hope you found this video interesting and informative and useful. And once again, until the next time, thank you very much for watching.